Felony Disenfranchisement, the new Jim Crow.
The chart above is up to date with all the states and their laws. Maine and Vermont are the only two states where you never lose your right to vote, while many other states have moved to loss of the right to vote while you're incarcerated, but your right to vote is fully restored upon release from prison. The majority of states have stuck with loss of the right to vote until parole and/or probation is complete. Florida recently filed a new reform to change their voting laws for criminals. The last category is loss of right to vote while incarcerated and until parole probation is complete. However, they add an extra waiting period until your right is fully restored. The process could take a while depending on the state and strictness of their laws.
6.1 million Americans cannot vote because of a felony conviction, and 1 of every 13 African Americans has lost their voting rights due to felony disenfranchisement laws versus 1 in every 56 non-black voters.
Not giving criminals the right to vote is a blatant discrimination of minorities, mostly African Americans. This banner states that more black men are in prison today than there were enslaved in 1850. Black women are also the fastest growing sector of the prison population. Statistics show that 1 in 3 black men can expect to go to prison in their lifetime. There are high numbers of youth of color coming into contact with the juvenile justice system, and higher rates of juvenile incarceration for African Americans that are more likely to be sentenced to adult prison later on.
This image displays a majority of the prisoners as part of minority races.
African Americans represent about 16% of the youth population. However, 37% of their cases are moved to criminal court, and 58% are sent to adult prisons. African Americans also receive longer sentences than whites. On average, their sentences are 10% longer than white offenders for the same crimes. Blacks are also 21% more likely to receive mandatory minimum sentences, a sentence set by Congress requiring minimum time in jail. This is all due to a 1994 federal crime bill passed by former President Bill Clinton called the Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act, the largest crime control bill in U.S. history. The bill decimated communities of color and accelerated mass incarceration. Its provisions implemented many things, including a 3 strikes mandatory life sentence for repeat offenders and an expansion of death penalty eligible offenses. As shown on this graph, the prison population increased when Bill Clinton signed this bill. Today, 5.3 million Americans are denied the right to vote as a result of this bill. 13% of African Americans living in the United States cannot vote today. 10 of those 13% are concentrated in just 11 states.
25 years. That is the amount of time Anthony Wright spent in jail after being wrongfully convicted for murder. He received a life sentence and barely escaped the death penalty in a 7-5 vote. After the retrial, it was determined that neither the clothes or the evidence they found contained his DNA. The prosecution's witnesses were both crack dealers who were unreliable and also lied under oath about the details of the killing. This is just one of the many examples of felons who are disenfranchised wrongfully. These are laws from 150 years ago in a different time, but opinions are evolving and laws should reflect this evolution. People deserve a second chance. Not every felon is alike, and their rights should not be limited without giving them the chance to differentiate their character. As one researcher said, it serves little purpose, educating and reforming no one.
When that prison door slams shut, it closes off the right to vote for convicted felons in New Jersey. They can't cast a ballot again until after they complete parole or probation. It happened to Ronald Pierce, who did prison time.
To strip an individual of their fundamental rights to vote is to deny the individual their personhood. To vote has value to the soul.
Pierce now interns for New Jersey's Institute for Social Justice, which today published a study called We're 1844 No More, a reference to the date New Jersey barred felons from voting. It shows 94,000 New Jerseyans currently can't vote because of a felony conviction, and it has racial implications because about half of them are African American.
We're silencing a significant segment of the population. In 2016, a little over 5% of New Jersey's black voting age population was denied the right to vote.
One reason, in New Jersey, black adults are 12 times more likely to be incarcerated than whites.
When you look at felonies and people in prison, the majority of those folk in prisons, a substantial number of people are black folk. And so it kind of go in line with some of the old Jim Crow laws.
And that is really unfortunate. You know, the right to vote is a fundamental constitutional right. That means that people shouldn't lose it no matter what. New Jersey falls into the category of states that actually disenfranchises people proactively based on criminal conviction.
Delegates who wrote the Constitution for Alabama in 1901 specifically tried to disenfranchise African Americans. Similar to the Jim Crow laws, the laws made were technically legal under the U.S. Constitution, but still were less harmful to white people than black people. The goal at the time was actually to establish white supremacy in the state by law rather than by force. One of the main problems with this article of the Alabama Constitution is that it is very unclear. It states that anyone convicted of a felony involving moral turpitude would have their rights revoked. However, since the term moral turpitude was not defined, it has been interpreted in countless ways over the years. Fortunately, there is a bill to create the definition of Moral Turpitude Act, which means there would be a specific list of exactly what crimes deserve to be punished by the removal of voting rights. The law then would no longer be open to interpretation, and also some people whose voting rights were taken away before could now apply to get them back.